karaoke and taekwondo together. Although that could be more fun. That probably would be a good fighting time. So good morning. Happy Monday. It's good to see each of you. Thank you for coming. I think this is my 4th or 5th time speaking here. I love speaking to this group. We have great conversations. So what I'm looking for from you today is to ask all the hard questions. You'll have a handout in front of you. We're going to go through that. And there's a really awesome checklist on the back. Before we jump in, let me give you a little bit of background about me. I'm a personal brand strategist. So that means my role is to help my clients figure out how to convey their purpose, their why, in a clear and compelling way. Although I do like other social media platforms, LinkedIn is my favorite. And so that's what we're focusing on today. How many of you have a LinkedIn profile? Everybody? How many of you, on a scale of 1 to 10, are a 10, that's good because you should have it here, or an 8, like you're using LinkedIn, but you'd like to know the more advanced things, sort of, okay? Don't really know how to use LinkedIn, log in so you can magically have things happen. Anybody else? Is that everybody else? Okay.
I don't even log in once a week. I don't log in at all.
Okay, so that was gonna be my other bucket. Was last time I logged in was like 6 months ago. All right, that's
Maybe
cool.
I need maybe a year or two ago.
I have people in the jobs who don't log in for once a year that we work on and try to make it better. So as we go through today, what I want to talk about is how to stand out on LinkedIn. I am going to go through some screenshots of my profile. To be honest, I'll probably show you LinkedIn specifically so you can see it in real time. If anybody wants a copy of my slides, I just need your business card at the end. I'm happy to share them with you so you have reference for notes. But I'll try to make this more interactive, even though I do have a lot of slides in here. We'll talk through how to actually build out a profile and what is a good profile, and how do you make it more compelling than a resume. Your LinkedIn profile is not a resume. If it is, then we've got a little bit of work to do. Okay? And then lastly, we'll talk about how do you get found on LinkedIn, how do you increase your visibility, and how do you engage in a way that's comfortable for you, but also gets you building that behavior. How many people have connected with someone on LinkedIn? Proactively sent a connection request. Posted articles, like shared links to articles. Written blogs. Okay, that's good. It's going to sound tomorrow. It's all right. That's why we're here. Okay. So, one of the things I want to do first before we dive in and make you very dangerous in a good way, is to talk a little bit about the different social media platforms. The reason I like LinkedIn, if you are worrying about social media and where else you want your professional presence, I really wouldn't look at Facebook. You might look at Facebook to research companies and their culture, but it's really not a professional space where you would put professional content. What I would say is make sure your Facebook profile is professional looking and there aren't any pictures that might keep you from being hired. That still does happen. Even if you put it on private, it's not always hidden. LinkedIn, yeah, go ahead.
What if you don't post any photos? You don't have a photo of yourself on Facebook. You kind of can.
That's okay. I think people draw conclusions from different things, right? So if I have a client who has a professional Twitter account, like their business Twitter account, and the last time they tweeted was a year ago, I'm going to tell them to delete it because it looks like they don't maintain it and they don't care, or they're just not active, which means they're not digitally savvy. So if you're trying to apply for a job that wants you to be digitally savvy, at least get one profile right, which would be LinkedIn. If you have other profiles that you're not using, I might just delete them because it's distracting.
Well, I like to look at what other people say on LinkedIn.
Totally. And on Facebook.
I mean on Facebook.
Right. I was
meant on Facebook.
I know what you meant. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. I have friends who are the same way.
So I don't post anything.
It's probably just
Goodbye.
because you don't have a personal.
Doesn't mean such a relative has it.
Right.
Like, I don't even have a Facebook account, but my brother-in-law and their family do.
Yeah.
There's family pictures in there, and they actually, their facial recognition.
So I make sure that Facebook has to ask me before someone can tag me. And when I get home notifications that say, someone wants to tag you, I'm like, oh no, what picture is this? It's usually a networking picture. Rob, did you have a question?
Yeah, I know the topic is LinkedIn, but there was you mentioned something about Twitter that I wanted to ask you to
Sure.
build on that answer.
Yep.
Okay. You have a professional Twitter account.
as a
It's
person.
dated, right, as a
Yep.
person.
Mhm.
It's dated, you
Yep.
haven't been posting to, let's take your example, for a year.
Yeah.
So is it better to delete and start a new one, or can you just actively restart with
It
that?
depends.
Okay,
Depends on what you're trying to do with it,
Right.
who your audience is, and if you're actually going to do it.
right.
How many anybody ever tried to be on a diet? And then you're like, I'm going to be on a diet.
Right.
And then a week later, you're like, I still need to get back on that diet. If you're going to do the same thing with Twitter, or like, I'm going to turn Twitter on, and then you're like, a week later, I'm going to use it at some point, then don't bother, just delete it. So if you honestly can say, I'm going to use it
Right.
twice a week, set a goal, do it,
Right.
perfect. Same thing with LinkedIn. You want to have a goal. How many of you have calendars and phones, and you live or die by both? So if you don't have time on your calendar for LinkedIn or for networking, then it probably won't happen. So that's what I tend to recommend. I don't want you to leave here and run a marathon on LinkedIn.
Right.
If you're not logging in but once a year, I would say set a goal of logging in once a month and connecting with someone once a week. Do something that's doable, that's not going to freak you out later and you're like, oh, I'm too stressed about doing this on LinkedIn. Do something that, grow it over time, but build that habit. Same thing with Twitter. Whether it's Twitter or LinkedIn, if all of a sudden you're doing something every single day, that actually can be weird and jarring to your network.
Right.
So if you've not been doing anything, do one thing this week, 2 things next week, 3 things the following week. Ease into it and build that habit. It's just a muscle. Just like running a marathon. Now, if you are applying to jobs that are visual or have a large presence, then you might want to look at Instagram, but that's a whole other conversation. Right now, just get your LinkedIn profile correct. When people get your resume, the first thing they do is Google you. The first thing that usually will show up, unless you have your own website, is going to be LinkedIn. And so you really want to make sure your LinkedIn profile is accurate and reflects you to the best way possible. Okay? So I want to dive into some of the nitty-gritty. How many of you know that there are metrics that you can track on your LinkedIn profile? Okay, there are metrics. When you log into your profile, you have the home page. When you actually go to your specific profile, these are the metrics that show up. And I'll show you this in a real profile in a minute. It will tell you in the last 90 days how many people viewed your profile. That's good to track, especially if you log in once a quarter. If you log in once a month, then you can see progress over time. Post views, so this is the last activity you did on LinkedIn. Let's say you shared an article from a company that you were interested in working at and you like what they wrote, or there's a thought leader from Washington Post that you shared. That will tell you how many people looked at the last thing you did. So this is from my profile from a while ago. In the last 90 days, I had 486 profile views. You may log in and see you've only had 10 or 20 or 30. It's okay. Just know where you're starting from. And as you do one thing a week or 2 things a week or 3 things a week, see if your profile's getting more views. Okay? It is just a way to measure to see if what you're doing is working. Okay? This last one is search appearances. And this shows up, these metrics show up even in the free version. This will tell you how many times did someone do a search where your profile showed up in the last week. Okay? And the reason that matters is because as we build your profile, you want to have words in there, terms in there, that would be what people would be searching on. Not necessarily what you would be searching on, but what everyone else might be searching on. Okay? And so for me, this was 332. You might have 9 or 10. You might have 1. Do not feel bad. We're just saying this is the starting point. If once a week you want to log in and look at metrics, perfect. Just put that on your calendar, set a goal. Maybe it's once a month. Maybe you do it with a friend over wine, and it's even more fun. But set a goal so you know what you're measuring so you can manage to it. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. The last thing is underneath this row of data, there's a career interest section. You can turn that on and let people know what kind of roles you're interested in, what kind of locations you're interested in. So if people are using the recruiting platform on LinkedIn, they'll find you. It used to be that if you had a job, you couldn't really look because people would know. There was nothing behind the scenes. This lets you do it very easily. I do have people ask me, should they put their in transition on their profile? I generally don't recommend that. I'll come back to that. There may be cases where that makes sense. And I'm going to give you some examples of what you could do otherwise. allows you career interests. You get to check all this kind of data, part-time, full-time, whatever you want. Locations, 20 different job titles. There's all kinds of stuff in here. So if you go in and set that up, again, this is in the presentation so you can see it later. And I'll show a real profile in a minute. How many of you have free LinkedIn? How many of you pay for some version of LinkedIn? For those of you who pay for LinkedIn, why do you pay for LinkedIn? Is it because you're using it a lot and you think it'll help or what? Yep. Yes?
Using a lot, think it'll help.
Perfect. So premium does help. There are a couple of really distinct features. One is that you do get more in-mails. I generally find I do not use those. However, that is a benefit. Another one is you do move up in search. You're paying for moving up in search, right? You also can go and look and see who's viewed your profile. So if you are active on LinkedIn,
That's the main reason I did it.
Totally.
I was too curious.
curiosity is awesome. It's really good because if it's free, you'll only see like 2 or 3 people. But if you're actively searching and looking and writing and comparing, you want to know who's coming to your profile. And that really is worth the price of admission if you're looking every week. One of the things that it will tell you is, are the right people coming to your profile? If it's people that don't have the same industry, don't have HR or recruiter, aren't people you've met, then it could be they're coming to your profile because they found you in a search that really wasn't how you wanted to show up in search. Okay. So you can try premium for free for 30 days when you're ready to do that and see if it's working. But don't turn it on for free for 30 days if you're not using it. It's kind of a waste of time. Okay,
That's how to turn out some of these lights, but it's really hard to see them.
can we turn on the front lights?
Well, if we do that, we'll lose the video.
Okay. I'll send these out, and I'm going to show the real screen in a second.
We might be able to turn off this.
These little ones. I'll trust you. And these are small fonts, so don't worry too much about it. I'll show a real profile in a minute, and it should show up a lot better on the wall. Can you still see video?
Yeah, we're fine.
Well,
You're good?
better.
Yeah.
Is that a little bit better?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. This is just a not random for LinkedIn. Random for most people because they don't know about it. You can do social index, social selling index. It just tells you how active your profile is. It's a different metric. And if you type in social selling dashboard LinkedIn, then you'll be able to look at your profile.
Is this a premium? No.
I don't think so. Okay, so before we get all crazy on LinkedIn, and Ron hates it when I speak because I'm always walking around. He needs to follow me with the video.
Well, you're not as bad as some.
I'm good, all right. One of the things I want to make sure we do is know what the heck are you putting on LinkedIn. That's where a personal brand comes in. Can I have a volunteer who would be open to letting me pick on them for their personal brand? There you go. I'm not going to look at your profile yet. I'll do that in a minute.
Yeah.
How do you say your name, Ronnie?
Ronnie, yeah, that's pretty good. Good job.
Thank you. Right. So what I ask people to do, and this is the first sort of box on your worksheet. What are the 3 things that when someone comes to your profile, you want them to take away and know that you are an expert at? These can be strengths that are an EQ or an emotional intelligence. Let's say you're high empathy. Let's say you're extremely fabulous communicator. You're good at written, you're good at verbal, you're good at compelling communications. Let's say it's an IQ related, right? So a skill like financial analytics. What are those 3 strengths that you want to have show up? And so if you weren't in the room and you wanted someone to describe you to that company that you want to hire you, what are the 3 things you really want them to make sure they hit home? And if you say problem solving or results oriented, we probably should talk because I don't know what those mean, right? You want to be specific to be terrific. So it's not just problem solving, it's what kind of problems, what kind of situation, white space, technical problems where people and technology intersect. So Ronnie, this is what I'm going to ask you to think about and be ready to share in a second. I'm a very visual person. That's why I like drawing and why I have slides. But there's some more logic behind that as well. Take another second or 2 to write down your 3 things. And no pressure. If you're not feeling the 3, We're not gonna get it wrong, we're just gonna take a swing at it and I'll give people a sense of an exercise, okay? And these should be the words that you think people would use to find you. So it wouldn't be a job title, but it might be the top skills or strengths for that role. Those are the things that you want to weave into your profile. Now, one of the challenges or questions people ask me is, I have only one LinkedIn profile, but I'm applying to 10 or 20 different jobs and they're all kind of different. How do I make that work on LinkedIn? These 3 strengths or skills, hopefully those translate to some degree across most of those roles. If not, maybe you're applying to some roles that really aren't a good fit. All right, Ronnie, you ready?
Yes.
Yes. I would hear a little more like, yes, I'm excited. I was like, yes.
Yes.
What are you doing? Tell me.
Okay, so I am a resource for personalized experiences, home
Okay.
and abroad.
All right.
When using my services, there's ease of use and it's enjoyable.
Okay.
And you're getting a deal with a multifaceted, trusted advisor.
So I'm going to put trusted advisor who looks out for me. Travel?
Yep, travel and social experiences. home and abroad.
Perfect. So travel and social experiences at home and abroad. And so my question would be, for each of you, as you're outlining these 3 strengths, the reason I do a Venn diagram, anybody want to tell me? Who hasn't done this with me before? Why do I do a Venn diagram?
To see if things overlap.
Mm-hmm.
The audience, but you're talking about audience essentially.
Mm-hmm. How many of you have thought, I'm going to apply to this job, but there are probably a lot of people just like me, and I'm not that different? You're
Well, as a
different.
first-
You're special.
as a first
You're
step,
amazing.
but-
As a first step. But this is a way to take those strengths, and as you come up with your stories, your examples, your evidence for your resume, your evidence for LinkedIn, make sure that you have examples where these intersect, because that is where the magic happens. Where you can say, not only am I able to be your resource, but I'm going to be your advocate. I'm here for you. I'm not here for the airplane or the hotel or whatever. That is all messaging that for me, I care about, right? How do people make decisions?
If they feel they can trust you, if they're close to you, or subscribe to you.
Is that a here or a here?
That's actually
It's an emotional. So even on LinkedIn, and especially LinkedIn, because it doesn't really come through in your resume, you want to think about what's the verbiage you're using that's conversational and connects with your audience in a way that makes you interesting and that appeals to them. And I realize we're talking about travel, and other of you have journalism and all kinds of different backgrounds. But this idea around what are those core areas of expertise and how do we build evidence on your profile and in your resume in a way that is compelling.
Can I throw a monkey wrench in it?
No, yeah, go ahead. Monkey wrench on.
My background is right now residential and commercial or federal real estate. But because
No wonder you want to do abroad experiences.
but because I have a passion for finding the deal, I do the digging. I'm a nerd. I'll tab out all day. So
How many of you are in a role in a past role where right now you're trying to transition to something totally different? Raise your hand. Okay, so here's another exercise before we move on that I want you to think about. If this is where you are trying to go, and this is your career, let's say you've had 3, 4, 5, 6 roles, what I want you to do is go back, and again, I'm visual, go back and look at each of those roles and think about what are the things, A, that you actually really enjoyed about them, but B, that they have in common. When you write your resume, you're writing each entry in and of itself. What I want you to do is step back, if you haven't done this already, and think about what is your overall story and your arc of your career. The reason this matters is because as you're writing for LinkedIn or as you're writing for your resume or even during an interview, you want to be able to connect the dots. Even if those jobs feel like they've zigged and zagged, there will be strengths that you have used in all of them, situations that you can weave together here. I had someone I was speaking to the other day, she is a preschool teacher. She wants to now move into a communications role in a company. She's like, I don't know how to communicate that. Not a problem. You're really good at understanding the agenda of your audience and communicating them to them in a way that gets them to do what you need them to do. I don't care if they're 3 feet tall or 6 feet tall, that ability to communicate, influence, direct, and manage, those skills transfer. And whether or not that's a lead, if she's already using those words, at least she's not coming in going, well, I was a preschool teacher, but I really think I can do this. She wants to come in confidently and say, here's the skills I've leveraged, and here's what I'm going to do, so that there's not any doubt. Okay? So even if you're in a residential, real estate, or federal role, find those things that you can pull up and out of that, because you are not your job. You are a person with skills. So how do you weave those through? And so if you go through and you find all of those situations and you think back to situations where you made a difference, and then find the common threads that go back to those 3 circles. You're writing about you as a person, not you as a job. That may make you go back and revisit some of the bullets you're using in your resume so that it's a clearer path for someone who's ready to interview you or hire you. Does that make sense? Any questions on that? It was so wonderfully, brilliantly clear. All right, perfect. And what I would recommend is do this with a partner. Find somebody who's a good sounding board who can give you feedback on your messaging. Your resume is very technical. LinkedIn, you can add a lot more story to it, which is why it's such an important and under-leveraged tool. All right, so let's go through a quick profile. This is me. For those of you who didn't know, you can change your banner in the background. I highly recommend you pick a banner that is on brand for you and does not distract from your profile. Now, it could be a background picture of DC. If you're doing travel, it could be a background picture of the globe. But you don't want it to take away from your story, you want it to add to it. It's kind of like eating a cake. If something's too overpowering, it distracts from the experience. You want someone to come to your profile. Does everybody have a professional headshot? Raise your hand if you do. Okay, so that was a good differentiator. No, I don't. I highly recommend that you do. If you need any references, let me know. It's a really important first impression.
How do you select the background? You do that right on LinkedIn?
You would take a picture, find a picture that you have the rights to use, save it on your computer, and then I'll show you how to go in and edit it in a second. Okay. This title underneath, really, really important. You want to make sure that you're using the keywords that will help you be found in search. You don't want to stuff it with words, right? So I have CEO, reputation strategy, build a personal brand that cuts through the noise, LinkedIn, speaker, author. You have 120 characters, just use them well. Brainstorm 5 or 10 different ways you would describe you as a person, as an expert, as a professional, because this is a large part of LinkedIn's search algorithm. Okay? I'm going to switch over to a profile, actually, because I think it will be easier. Everybody good with that? All right, let me know if you can see mine. All right, so when you log in, this is what you see, yes? Anybody heart rate get faster? You're a little stressed out that we're actually looking at LinkedIn. We're all good? Okay. What I want you to know, this is your homepage, right? This is where you could say, oh, fantastic session this morning at 40 plus, love that organization, they do amazing work. Or not. If you don't want to let people know you're here, that's up to you. You could share an article in Washington Post. You could share an article, et cetera, et cetera. So that's how you would write a post, and I can come back and show you that more. What I want to show you is my profile, and then Fred offered me the opportunity to judge his profile, which I might do. So this is the banner. Everybody familiar with these pencils that you can edit? This is where you can edit your banner up here, your picture. This is where you would put in those keywords. If you are were recently married, I would say put in a former name so people can find you. Most of my friends either call me Jen or Jennifer. If you call me Jenny, it's because you knew me from high school. So I just have Jennifer and Jen, because when you search in LinkedIn, if you don't have those two names, and you can also do it in your about or your summary, you actually won't come up. It makes it a bit harder. So if you have a name where people might call you different, whether it's Jen, Jennifer, etc., just make sure you add that somewhere in your summary. This is where you really want to have a powerful headline, and it could be communications expert, etc., and then put a little context that helps someone know more about what you do. If you want to put in your contact info, you can. That's up to you. Sometimes it does lead to people calling, as in rival marketers. This little box up here, and on the back of the worksheet, if you flip it over, is the checklist I'm going through right now. So if there's something where you see it and you're like, yeah, I don't have that, just make a little mark and come back later and fix it on your profile.
Can you cover, if you haven't worked in
Yeah.
5 years?
Yep. What to do?
Yep.
Yep. Before I go back to the profile, this is where you can change your URL or your web domain. You can actually go in and make this your name. Normally it has your name and some numbers and digits. It just doesn't look great. I would go back and change that. It will help you with being found. They have added something new here. You can put in some of your skills and highlight a skill. This probably would be related to the 3 areas of expertise we talked about a little bit ago. If you want me to stop, just raise your hand. So I'm going to go through this and I'll try to look out and check in. But if you have questions, let me know. The about. This used to be the summary. How many of you have a bio in your LinkedIn profile? No. Yes? Some of you. All right. Here are some tips that I think would help. First of all, I highly recommend you write it in first person. The rest should be in third person. If that makes you totally freak out, then do it in third person. But it's a much easier to read if it's in first person. And so for your summary, and I'll buy you a whole new post-it pad because I'm using one. For your summary, if you like structure, and one of my Venn diagram circles is structure, to make this a little bit like a Mad Lib, what I would think about is, think about it in 3 paragraphs. Tell me why you love what you do. Not in a superfluous, fluffy way, but something interesting. Throughout my career, I discovered my passion for XYZ. That's why I've always been in some role that requires these skills, blah, 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 blah. Right? Tell me something interesting that is a hook. Again, 3 to 5 sentences. I know 5 sentences is technically a paragraph. You can get 3 and you like them, and 5 is feeling too hard, at least get 3, but 5 would be great. Okay? So tell me about you. Make this interesting. Maybe it's a statistic or a data point that you use when you're out networking that gets people's attention. Okay? The second paragraph is the what. Think of a few examples. If you do a circle bullet in Word, you can copy paste it much easier, and it will look a bit more formatted and easier to read. What are some examples of work that you've done that you're really proud of? You can pull those out here and really highlight them. And it's, 1 to 2 sentences per example. And these should be ones that you're the most proud of at any point in your career, because you want someone to take a gander at this. And part of the reason we fill this in is because then it also gives you more keywords on your profile. The last one is the how. Write 3 to 5 sentences on how you work with people, how you like to get things done. What are the competencies you use? For example, I built a career collaborating with people within my team, but also outside of my team. I love working across enterprise to deliver really powerful results. My team is said I'm blah, 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 whatever, right? But a few sentences that make you human. So when someone comes to your profile can work for you and give people the words you want to have them use. If you don't have any words there, how does that help someone? Anybody? doesn't, right? So until you control the words in your interview, in your resume, in your LinkedIn profile, it's hard to help other people and ask them to take the time to figure out how amazing you are. Make it easy and just tell them. Personal branding is not personal bragging. I'm not saying brag. I'm just saying be confident in your results and own them. All right, we good so far? Yes. Rob, what's your question?
This one may be too much or not making sense. I'm a little curious about, in this rubric of you want to tell a story, you're creating a narrative, and you're selling your brand. Okay, so specifically in LinkedIn then,
You're communicating your brand, yes.
which functions should we be most focused on in, respectively, and I forgot the exact name of it, but let's call it the summary part that comes under your picture, right?
Summary, the about,
Then the title line, and then the about section, or how are those to be used differently?
So I would think of it like this. Think of it like your favorite soundbite, movie title, quote as a summary, right? Your headline should really be the punchline, the summary, upon which everything else is cascading from, right? Your headline needs to get my attention enough that I actually might want to read your bio. Your experience needs to get my attention so that I know what have you actually done. Most resumes don't actually tell me who you are or the outcomes you've done. They tell me the activities you've done, but not the impact. The other thing that's usually missing, how many of you have worked for companies that maybe aren't that well known? So LinkedIn is a way to put in a sentence or two about the company, and then you can put in your role and accountability. Because the last thing you want is for someone to go, I don't know that company, they're not Google or Facebook or whatnot, and then not understand that this is a really cool boutique firm. And this is why working here was really awesome, because their clients all were top 500, Fortune 500. Right? So you want to give people context so they have that information briefly to make that easier. Does that make sense?
It does, but I guess what... I'll talk to you.
Hold on thought. We'll come back to it later. Good time. Yes.
So I have spent 24 years teaching.
Yay, thank you.
And I'm burned out. And I want to move into something. I'd like to move into nonprofit education, where I'm not teaching 5 classes with 200 students. So what I've noticed when I've watched TED Talks on finding a job, and you know, articles I found online, it's all about companies. I mean, and it sometimes it doesn't match or help me. The language is just different from what I know and experience.
Okay. So let's do this. Let me come back to that. Do you have a specific question you want to make sure I answer?
I don't know. I just need to figure out how to do it as a former educator, moving into a different environment.
Anytime you're moving industries, like I work with a lot of military, transitioning them into private, public, etc. Relearning or learning for the first time the language to use is really important.
Yeah.
Because if you're not writing your resume or your LinkedIn profile in the language that the people who read it are going to appreciate, the easiest thing to do would just be 4th grade level conversational for LinkedIn, because it's easy to read. Your resume can be a bit more technical, but you want to write it for your audience. Like I've taken military resumes and totally had to redo them because they don't translate to a law firm at all, right? And so that's not an uncommon thing, and we can talk more about that. What I would say is, you know, if you're trying to convey the work you've done, one of the things LinkedIn can do is allow you to add media. So if you've done teaching or workshops or training, and that's relevant to a role you're looking at in the nonprofit space, you can add in media, right? You can put a link to articles you've written, and you can do that in your about or summary. by just uploading something or putting a link to something if you have a video, for example. Same thing for your experience. This is where your data is, by the way, just on your profile page. I do post a fair amount, and I do write a lot of articles and blogs, so this is where this would show up. In case you write something and you're like, I forgot what I wrote, or who I tagged, you can come here and do that. I'll show you this in a second. In your experience section, you can do the same thing, right? You can add media. I try to stick with 2 so that it's easy to read. You can put in 8, but at that point there are little pictures. It doesn't give somebody text to help them know why they should look at it. Your title here, I would also put in keywords, because that helps you be found as well. So not just your past title, but what did you do? Who was your audience? Your experience section should be fleshed out. If you have a gap, what I would ask you to think about is, have you done, so Gail for you, have you done non-service work? Have you sat on the board? Have you done any of that? If you haven't, then we want to come up with some way to put experience here. Organizations like Flex Professionals, places where you can do interim work, bridge work that's related to your skill set. Not that Lyft and Uber are bad, but if you're doing Lyft or Uber and that's not what you want to be doing, let's not put that on LinkedIn. I have had someone do that, not my client, someone I was talking with. You want to make sure that you can fill this space. So even if it's finding part-time work, that's okay. We want to show that you're delivering value, okay? Yes?
So that section versus the about section. I have been playing with putting in my about that I've been doing the world's most honorable, job being a mom.
Yeah.
And leaving it blank on the experience part. Is that a good way to play that off of each other?
I think it depends on the companies you want to go work for. There will be some companies with some cultures who absolutely want to help moms returning into the workforce or coming to the workforce for the first time. Flex Professionals is one of those. It's actually founded by Sheila Murphy, who sits on a board with me. Lovely company, amazing work. And they work specifically with moms who have stepped away from the workforce but want to stay relevant in the job force. And so let's talk more about that afterwards. There's a way, I think, to do that. The trick now, whatever role you're in, if you do have expertise, is starting to build that evidence. We are trained not to talk about ourselves. And when we do, to downplay it. For sure, women, men.
So
For
can you
sure,
put
women.
non-paid work on your experience section?
Absolutely. If you were sat on a nonprofit, if you were a volunteer, if you did any of that, PTA, PTO, probably not. But if you did some other work, we should talk about it. If you haven't and you're trying to fill some of that space, consider joining a board, consider joining a nonprofit that you actually love and believe in and you want to support, right? That can help put work on there that's meaningful. Okay. Yep.
What about caregiving?
No.
No, leave it out.
Unless you want to go work in the caregiving space. Yeah. It's something every person will have to face at some point to play that role, and it's extremely hard. It may come up in an interview question potentially, but I would try to leave that out. This really is more about the workspace. And I know that's a tough one. Let's talk more about it, because I want to be open-minded to that idea. But initially, I would say just be cautious of that. If any of you have spoken in the past or given talks, add a speaker role. If you've written a book, add an author role. This is a volunteer group that I participate in called 1 Million Cups. It's for business owners. Totally volunteer, but it's on my profile. It's also because I'm an organizer, so I'm helping to run out with a group of people. But this is a good example of nonprofit work that could be on your profile. Okay?
Well, what if you've had a speaker role, but it's so much in the past?
Depends. We can talk about it. If that speaking content and role is relevant to what you're trying to do next, maybe. Maybe. I believe there's always a way. It just may not be totally intuitive or clear path. Here's another nonprofit, Business Women's Giving Circle. Many Hands is a great nonprofit in DC. There are a fair amount of groups in DC. There are also powerful networking groups that you could join and have on your profile so it shows you're engaged. Education. Do make sure you have education filled out. Certifications, if you have any, put them here. Licenses, put them here.
Even if they're no longer current?
If they're relevant, as in it matters to the next job, maybe you need to get certified, recertified.
But what if it's, okay, for example, I was previously a real estate agent, but it was
Okay.
so long ago, and I don't want to be selling real estate.
So what I would say is for your resume and for LinkedIn, anything over 15 years shouldn't be on there.
Was a certified guidance counselor, again, it was a long time ago.
If it's relevant to the work you want to do, it might be worth thinking about. I'm open to that idea, it just depends. I do like coffee, chocolate, and wine, so if anybody wants to talk with me more later, I have my business cards here just for that reason. But so if I move on, it's not because I don't like you. All right. This is one of the most important pieces, skills and endorsements. It is critical that you have, I would identify 10, but you want to make sure they're the right 10. You want to make sure the top 3 are the most relevant to you. Hopefully they line back up with the 3 circles. However, what I would say is these words need to be ones that people searching would be searching, using to find you. This is also a large part of being found on LinkedIn from an algorithm standpoint. So on your experience section, if you only have the bullets you copy and pasted from your resume, I would add in a line or 2 about the company. I would add in a line or 2 about what you are accountable for in that role. And then you can put in those bullets if you would like. But you want it to be a bit more of a story or a picture that you're painting versus a technical document. A lot of people forget, and I'm going to use this acronym. I have a blog on this, so if you don't remember it all, don't worry about it. It's on my website. I'll share it. Called Impress. When you're writing your resume, LinkedIn, doing an interview, you have to be able to communicate. I recommend you communicate your impact. You were in a job. What was at stake in that job that you fixed? What was at stake that you fixed? This is part of telling a compelling story in an interview, in a conversation, on LinkedIn, in your resume. What was at stake? Your resume won't want really a story, it's much more technical, but you get the idea. What were the metrics that can tell me about it? That's M. What were the metrics? Was there a budget? Were there a number of people impacted? Is there a number of clients you worked with? Are there a number of students that you trained? Are there peers that you trained that were teachers, but you don't have teachers because you don't want to do teaching, so you put peers, right? Sometimes change the words so it works better for the audience. Proximity. Who did you report into? Who were you facing all the time? Was it clients? Was it vendors? Was it partners? Was it Supreme Court? Like, give me some more information so I don't have to come up with my own story because frankly I'm not done, right? So proximity could be reported into the board, reported into the executive suite, presented to the board, maybe you didn't report it, but maybe you did some really cool presentations. The role, this goes back to accountability. A lot of times people put what they did, they don't actually put what they were held accountable for. What was your description that you were held accountable for? Because that's usually a bit more comprehensive. Engaging. Don't start any of your summaries or experiences with, I've been doing this for 20 years, like that, and I fell asleep already, right? And it dates you. So start with something interesting, or at least some information. Scope and scale. So we talked about this earlier. Be able to explain how did your scope over your career, how has it changed and grown? Even if it's grown and shrunk and grown and shrunk or whatever, just in general, how has it grown? And your scale, when you were with an organization, did you help them scale? Did you help them grow? If you can answer these letters, impact, metrics, proximity, role, keep it engaging, scope, and scale, then the odds of having your LinkedIn profile and your resume be more interesting goes up a lot. And frankly, be more helpful. Is your last question, and then you're out. No, I'm just kidding. Good, what's up?
What
How
do
can I
you do
help?
if you don't know the metrics? Or you can't remember the metrics?
So those are different. If you, either one I would try to ask, and if you don't, try to do a proxy. And if you're like, I really don't, then don't put it in there, because we don't want to fib or lie or have to explain it later. Right? And sometimes metrics you can't share because it's confidential. So if you've worked at a company where the metrics are confidential, there are ways around that. Double-digit revenue growth, something like that. And if you're worried, ask the prior company what you can share. Go to other people's profiles, whether they're usually bad, and see what they share. See what's public. Okay. The more metrics you can share, the less I have to imagine, and the easier it is for me to go, wow, they really made a difference. Okay. Are we good so far? Yes.
Can I just ask about the age thing?
Yep.
So on your education notes, there were years.
Mhm.
Would you recommend keeping them off if you're over a certain age?
Yeah, I would keep them off if it's, I'm actually right on that cusp of 20 years. Hold on. Yeah, I would take them off.
Okay.
Off your resume, off LinkedIn. They're going to find out anyways. They're going to talk to you anyways. I would say the biggest thing you can do to counteract ageism, have a really good headshot with a white, bright, energetic background. I don't mean like neon energetic. I just mean like a clean, fresh background. Have a professional headshot. And this is why you want to energize your language. You want to let people know, I've done this for 20 years. Every time I've done it even faster than the last time. I'm very good at what I've done. I can come in and do XYZ faster than average in the market, right? Set up your expertise and experience as a value add. It is absolutely more beneficial to have someone who has done something 5, 10 times than someone who might be cheaper but has never done it. And so if you can include language that talks about what's at stake, let's talk about, I don't know, what do you do?
Marketing.
Okay. What's at stake if a company does poor marketing? That was not a rhetorical question. What's at stake?
They're not going to grow.
They're not going to grow. In a time where market share, right, is dominated by how well you can deliver a message, companies need to be doubling down on their marketing talent because good marketing can move the needle and bad marketing is very expensive, right? Something like that, I've done marketing for blah, 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 right? I've done this initiative, this type of thing, had to think through this, done integrated marketing, digital marketing, et cetera, et cetera. Don't be afraid to remind your audience what's at stake. When you see a preview at a movie theater, what makes you go see the movie? Yes, the trailer, but what's usually in the trailer? Is it happy?
It's the plot or parts.
It's a hook, right?
Yeah.
Like when you're seeing the Star Wars trailer and she's like this, getting ready to battle. That's what's at stake, this battle, right? That's your trailer, that's your LinkedIn entry, that's your story, that's your intro. You need to hook people and let them know, if you're not doing this well, this is what's at stake. And because I've done it so many times and I have such experience and expertise, here's how I can help you. Just matter of factly, you don't need to do it in a braggadocious way. You can just say, I've worked at 6 different companies, or I've been in scenarios multiple times, dozens of times, where marketing has been a huge question mark. And I've worked with the executive team to figure out the marketing plan, the budget, and we've gotten 3x return on investment, blah, 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 blah. Right? Don't be afraid to paint that picture, because if you don't do it, who else, who's the chief marketing officer? For you?
You are.
You are. So you're not saying it, I don't know who else is. You gotta put it in there somewhere.
Yeah.
No time, no back.
What do you, okay, I recently applied for a job where they asked the year I graduated from high school. And I'm a lot older than I look.
I don't think you can answer that. I feel like that
That's
goes into,
required.
that goes
I've got it too.
in the sketchy
It's
sketchy.
required. You cannot,
Yeah.
the questionnaire is online. You
Yeah.
cannot move forward unless you answer that question.
Oh,
And,
honestly, my
2020
response
is
was to
doing
put 1900. Send a message that that's none of your business.
Well, then you're definitely not going to, if they, and then you have to say that everything on there is true.
Yeah.
let me noodle that and I'll come back to that. But that's also why you have to make sure you're on LinkedIn, you're being active, right? You're being the expert you are. And if you need more experience to showcase that, then there are ways to do that. I'll talk more.
I wonder sometimes if those online forums aren't just collecting a lot of information.
Just collecting data.
Not really good.
Let's assume positive intent, but make everything else you have killer. Right? Amazing interviews, amazing, go out and network, build relationships, follow up, you have to be better than everybody else, right, to be able to get that role. It's possible, I promise. Okay. One of the huge things that really matters are recommendations. We absolutely want to make sure that if possible, you have at least 5, if not more, recommendations from people. And I also recommend that you give recommendations to people you've worked with in the past. This is not a quid pro quo. This is not a quid pro quo where you write one and I write one. These should be authentic and genuine. If you've worked with someone in the past, even if it's been a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, genuinely sit down and think about 3 to 4 sentences that you would want to write that would be valuable to them where they are right now in their career. Draft it and send it to them and say, hey, as I'm going through looking for my next opportunity or exploring what's out there, I was thinking about our time working together. I wrote a recommendation. I've heard this is really powerful to do on LinkedIn. It moves you up in search. I know you're busy, so I went ahead and drafted it for you. Let me know if you like it or you want me to tweak it, and I'm happy to post it on your profile. You'll still need to go into LinkedIn and accept it, but I wanted to send you an email to let you know that I was going to do this and see if it would be helpful. That's step 1, writing for other people. Step 2, virtually the same process. Fred, I really liked when we worked together. I valued our relationship and I really valued our time working on project XYZ. I've been building my digital presence and working on my personal brand. Would you be open to writing a recommendation? I know you're really busy, so I drafted one for you. Feel free to use it or not. I just want to make your life easier because I know I'm asking you for some help. If you want to use what I've already written, or even if you tweak it, just copy below, go to LinkedIn to my profile, and here's how you submit a recommendation. So whatever you're doing, make it very easy for someone you know to write a recommendation, or for you to write one for someone else. I do believe in karma and doing good. So that's why writing recommendations is a good thing. And also because recruiters look and pay attention. I have some people who have gotten 30 recommendations, never written one for anybody. That tells me something too. It could just mean they're not paying attention. But either way, they're not paying attention.
So recruiters can know how many recommendations you wrote, posted.
Yeah, it's right here, right? And they can see it on your profile.
Oh, I see.
I've received 34, I give it 28. I've got to actually write a couple this week. Yes.
Is it going to look bad if the person you recommend turns around and writes one for you and that's all you got? Does it look like it?
I would be more worried about getting a good recommendation. I wouldn't ask for one when you write one, not that that's what you were saying, but I wouldn't stress about that. If you want to spread them out, because we talked about not doing a marathon, so maybe set a goal of write one recommendation for someone in your network once a week, for 10 weeks or 5 weeks or whatever. But that could be one of your actions you take, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. And part of the reason you write them is why?
It's going to drive traffic to your page, right?
But why do I draft it? Yes, it does. It moves you up in search. But why do I draft it for someone?
To make it easy.
Oh,
Yes,
But it's
and?
also about your personal brand, so you want to make sure they hit on all the high points.
Yeah,
And you're controlling the narrative.
yes. If you ask someone, say, Rita, would you write a recommendation? Sure. And she goes on, I really like how she dresses. She looks great in the presentation. And she's super funny. And they're like, okay, great. Not the word I was looking for. Helpful, but not perfect, so I missed an opportunity. So that's why you want to draft it to control narrative. Yes.
And also, I imagine if you're drafting recommendations, in addition to making it easier and so forth and so on,
Right.
the act of drafting the recommendation, every time you're doing that, you're imagining, or I would be imagining, the person for whom I'm drafting it, like sitting right there, right?
Yes.
So then you're really kind of putting yourself in that person's shoes and saying, what does this person think of me? And that sort of helps you sort of maybe even jog some things in your own mind to go back and tweak elements of your whole summary and so forth.
Absolutely. And if you haven't reached out to this person in a long time, like go grab coffee, spend some quality time. Don't just pull out of your social capital. Start with someone you already know, like, and trust, and they know, like, and trust you. And I would say, as you're asking for recommendations, what should they not be if you're drafting them? Every single one needs to be unique. I think that's obvious, but if it's not, I'm just making sure. Right? You want to have 5 or 10 recommendations that are robust across you as a person. So maybe one person would be about communication or one about X, Y, Z. But make sure as you look at them, they paint a nice holistic picture of you. And they should be truthful from the person that you've written it for, right? They should read it and not go, wow, I can't believe they want me to write this. It should be something that's obvious. Okay, so recommendations are a huge deal. Yes?
Before you draft the recommendation for someone,
Yep.
is it a good idea to call the person and get their general impression about the time that you worked with them? It might save you some time because you might thought that they had a high opinion of you and it was just so-so, and then you haven't wasted your time drafting this that they're just not going to do anything with it.
Yeah, so an effort of not using more of these yet. I think there's probably 3 tiers of people. There's people that you stay in touch with, you know, really well professionally, and even as friends potentially outside work, that completely copacetic to write them for and send them. There will be a group of people you should absolutely either have lunch with, let them know what's going on, and at the end make the ask of, hey, based on our conversation, would you be open to writing blah, blah, blah? Or you could call them and say, hey, I was trying to update my LinkedIn, like, what do you think I'm good at or what's good at, and what do you think I should include? At the end of that call, if it's been helpful, you can say, hey, you know, this has really been helpful. Would you mind if I drafted a recommendation for you to write, or maybe just endorse some of my skills? Because those are different. So the skills up above us that we just looked at, you do like it when people endorse those. The more you have, the more of an expert you're perceived. You have to get to 99 plus. However, that does move you up in search as well. So let's say you're trying to re-engage with someone who you haven't talked to in a long time. Go endorse them. Go endorse their skills on LinkedIn. And then a few days later, go check on them. And say, hey, I just saw your profile and I endorsed you for a couple of things. Just want to make sure you saw. If I should endorse something else, let me know. How's it going? Some people feel like that's manipulative. What I would say is that's just really good planning. Someone can decide whether they want to write a recommendation or not. But if you can have a plan that will increase your odds of success, absolutely have a plan. And if for you it's better to have coffee or lunch first, totally. It needs to feel right for you and right for your network.
I just feel like a lot of people don't get out of the house enough. And
yes.
And calling them and saying, let's connect.
In person is way better. On the phone is better.
You get verbal clues from them.
Absolutely.
If you're talking to them and you see a mortified look when you recommend
a video call. Right.
Yeah.
Well, I do think that if you reach out to them and say, hey, I'm updating my LinkedIn. It's been a while since we worked together. I wanted to get your thoughts on how did I show up in the job and what do you remember me doing well? And then see what they say. There are times when I look at my resume, I'm like, I don't really remember much about that job. So it might be good just to call and get a refresher on how were you perceived. 90% of your personal brand is how others perceive you. 10% is about what you say. So we talk about recommendations. Accomplishments. This is not on your profile unless you add it. So if you have organizations you've supported, if you've gone online and taken courses to help you further your skills, if If you have any honors or awards, this is a really good one. If you've done projects and you add these in, right? So each of these, I need to go in and update mine. Each of these have 4 or 5 sentences. What that means is those are more keywords to help move you up in search.
What section is that in?
Accomplishments. So when you go to the very top of your profile, that blue box is nothing. When you scroll down, that blue box will appear. And here is where you can add all sorts of stuff. If your skills are not in your profile, usually they are, but LinkedIn does a lot of beta testing, so some profiles do look different. They do a lot of A/B testing. This is available for this person, not for this person. Under accomplishments, you can add in publications, patents, courses. Projects are really good, like I said. You can go back and build evidence that way, especially if you're already thinking about the stories you would use in an interview. They can be high level. They don't have to be giving away secret information. Just talk about the actual work you did, whether it's change management, whether it's launching a new publication, whatever that is. Languages, organizations. Recommendations, again, I don't ask for them through LinkedIn because sometimes people don't check their LinkedIn that much, which is why I email them directly to increase the odds of them seeing it.
What if you don't know their email addresses?
And I don't think you know them well enough to get a recommendation. But I would message them on LinkedIn and say, hey, we'd love to catch up. That would be a good way to catch up in person first, and then see if it's a good fit for them to write one for you. Or you can message them and say, hey, I didn't have your email, but I wanted to get together, but not do it through LinkedIn. What's your preferred email? And some people on their profile will actually have their email. Depends. Okay, other questions on the profile before we go to the next section?
Do you have all of this in your book?
No, I have a lot of it online. And then, of course, these are all videotaped on 40 Plus's YouTube channel. I have lots of blogs about this, about LinkedIn. And I do complimentary consults, so you're always welcome to grab free time with me on my website. Yep, absolutely. So if you were going to write an article, a blog, how many of you have written in the past? Anybody write here? I don't mean like write a blog. Like you've written a blog or an article? Okay, perfect. If you have, then what I would think about is there a piece that you could put on your profile that would be helpful? That would be evidence to show how you think. Can I ask you a question? Please raise your hand if you're telepathic. Anybody? Sort of. That makes sense.
I knew you were going to ask that.
Yeah, I know. Video guy with a sense of humor. So what I would say is, the reason you write, it's not because you're doing it for you. You're doing it to help other people gain insight and knowledge that you've acquired to show them how you think and what could be hopefully valuable information for them. You're not writing to say, oh, I'm awesome, blah, blah, blah. You're writing to say, hey, I knew a couple of things, I know a couple of things, and I wanted to share. Now, you might want to do that, and you should do that in a very thoughtful way. Actually, I have a free resource on how to blog on LinkedIn, because I am very specific about structure. You can also go look at some of mine. I try to do it once a month, so I don't want you to leave today and think, oh God, I have to do that every week or every day. Please don't. But if you're trying to build evidence, especially if you're trying to move into a new career or a new space, then writing that content helps give your audience additional evidence to help you take them on this journey from, if they are here, right, here's your audience. Here's where you are. You need them to come to where you are and know, like, and trust you. How do you do that? Tug of war? Red rubber? Evidence. Evidence. Where do you need to start showing them evidence? Where?
You're writing.
But where here? Here or here?
Close to
You
the
gotta
audience.
meet people where they are. If they're gonna look at your resume and say, wow, she's been out of work or stay on mom or whatever, they're starting with those assumptions. So your goal is to write content that can bridge the divide to change their mind. But you have to start with language that they already believe. If you said, I haven't worked for 20 years, but I'm awesome at work, which might be true, they may not believe it because it's a different kind of work than maybe you're applying for. So you want to meet them where they're at, understand what are they looking for, and then begin there. And you can slowly build your evidence. Okay? All right, so the next section we're going to go into. Does that make sense? Yes.
I have a situation where I taught at a Catholic girls' high school.
Okay.
And for 10 years I taught religion. And I mean, I would go to a nonprofit Catholic organization, but I also would go other ways. But I wrote 4 articles for a young adult Catholic website. And about my experience in the classroom teaching religion.
Okay.
Is that something that I could put up one of those articles? Or is that something because it's religion that maybe I shouldn't?
It depends.
Because if it's on LinkedIn, I can't take it on and off or whatever.
So there are a couple of different questions to ask. Because I'm not going to have a clear answer because these questions aren't answered yet.
Right.
One is, do you have permission to use the content?
I have to ask, I haven't yet.
2 is, does the content help convey the brand you're trying to present? Or would you be better served, 3, coming up with new content?
Okay.
Now, if you were going to go apply at a nonprofit that was Catholic that worked with young girls, it sounds like a pretty good fit. However, if you have, most of you will probably, this is not hangman, although that would be fun, most of you probably have 3 to 5 audiences you're trying to target. Right? And so for you, it could be Catholic schools, maybe or maybe not. I know you say you want to teach them more, but let's just pretend for a minute.
Right.
It could be Catholic nonprofits. It could be nonprofits. It could be nonprofits that do education. It could just be education for profit. Now all of a sudden, I want you to look at, well, who are the companies in these? What do they want? I know you don't want to do that, so we'll cross that out. But they could be interesting.
Yeah.
And then what are the roles in these positions? Who are the companies? Which companies do you like? What are the values that matter to you? So when you go to work at a company, it's aligned, right? So each of you, if you haven't thought about who are, and these are companies, right? In reality, you'd want the people who would be hiring you for these roles need to know what they're looking for, which is why you want first grade level, so even a recruiter fresh on the job can understand the value you bring. But you want to know your audience because this will help you identify. Let's say you do research on these companies and you're like, ooh, there's some awesome for-profit education companies. Who knew?
Yeah.
And you start sharing articles about these organizations. Or you follow the company's CEOs. Or you do things like that. Or you join groups. So before I leave LinkedIn, I just want to go back for a second. So this is where you would write a blog, you click write an article, and you can draft the blog there. You could start a post. Let's say you found a great article, and you, Washington Post article, and you just wanted to put great read about blah, 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 whatever, from the Washington, I don't like this keyboard, Washington Post. Please. We're getting into. Then you can scroll down and you could tag the Washington Post. You do have to go back in and make sure it's, sometimes LinkedIn gets a little hinky. And let's say a great article written by Jen Dalton, which is not true, but let's say if it were, you wouldn't write it like this, obviously that's not a nice sentence, but you could say, loved reading this article by so-and-so about blah, blah, blah. I saw this all the time in my past work, which is why I'm so passionate about evolution of education. Right? So you want to find articles, or if you're going to a networking event and there's an amazing speaker, you want to find things to talk about. But it should be authentic and add value. For people who only like, if you're going to like something, please comment. If you're going to comment, please share. If you're going to share, you might as well share and comment. Because you're wasting your time otherwise. If you like something, I see people like stuff like 6 ways to Sunday, except that it's really not useful. Because you're missing an opportunity to do what?
Show your brand.
To show your brand. How do you think? What did you think about this article? What point was your favorite one that the author wrote about? What evidence are you accumulating or associating that if someone comes to your profile, they'll go, wow, I really like this evidence of how they engage and speak. So just something to think about. I would look at in the search function, so let's see, who has a job title they're looking at? Shout out one. All right, I'll just make up one. Vice President. Useless. Who here is familiar with Boolean logic? Okay.
I knew it
So
at one time.
2 people in the room. That's okay. So what you want to do or consider doing, let's say you did Vice President and let's say you did travel. So anytime the words Vice President and the word travel shows up in anything on LinkedIn, I want to know about it. Here are people. Is this helpful if you want to know who has the job you're looking to work on? Like, who on LinkedIn has jobs in the title you already want? What do their profiles look like? So think about how much your profile will look like. You could also look to say who's the hiring manager, or who's the person you might be reporting into. But you can also look at what are the jobs. Apparently there's not any. You could look at what's the content. So what are people posting? What blogs are being written? So that if you wanted to comment more intentionally, you can go find that content, right? You should also consider looking at what companies have those keywords. So forget Vice President and travel. Let's just say you wanted to look for law firms, right? You can do a lot of different filters on LinkedIn to get information about people, about jobs, about companies, about content, and also about groups. You can join a lot of groups. I would not join every group. I think you can only join like 50 anyway. But if you're not going to actually use it, then don't. But if you were into travel, then you might join some of these. But I would look at which groups have a lot of members and which ones are really active and consider joining them and seeing what's going on. Okay. All right, questions? I can come back to groups in a little bit. I want to get through the rest of the presentation and I can come back and answer questions later on groups.
I just wanted to make a point that I've been kind of following along as you're doing this in my own profile. I don't have the paid profile, so finding those little portions to keep adding into you can find them
Free.
slightly differently. Yeah, if you're on the free side, you find them slightly differently.
Yeah, and LinkedIn is notorious for layouts looking different. Like I'll be working with one client versus another client, and the setup on LinkedIn is different.
Okay.
Which is frustrating. Part of the reason I talked to you about groups and companies is because at the bottom of your profile are your interests. Some companies do pay attention when you follow their page. They pay attention when you share content from their page, so just be mindful. They pay attention if you're in groups and you're active. Companies want people who are good brand ambassadors. So if your profile is awesome, that can help. All right, I think I've talked through all of that. Boolean logic, okay. This last piece that we're going to talk through is about visibility. There are a lot of ways you could engage on LinkedIn. Can anybody share some examples of how they've engaged on LinkedIn that have been effective?
So when you meet a group of people like this, what you can do is actually go on and find this little barcode or QR code.
Who's here? Who's here?
Right, and then you can actually hover over each other's phone and just exchange like a business card. It's like a digital business card. Pretty cool.
Love it.
Yeah.
You can look for who's nearby that you're connected with. Very cool too. Yeah.
I find secondary connection as a hell. I see we both know so-and-so. Would you?
Absolutely. So when you search for people, you can remove your first connections, just so you see the second and even third connections, so you can do some very specific asks. One could be, would you mind introducing me to so-and-so? Not for a job, but to have a 10-minute phone call or coffee, so I can learn more about the company they're at and the industry they're in, to figure out if that's a space I'd like to look at or consider going into. Everything is always about curiosity. It's always about curiosity. If you're sending someone a first connection request and you include your resume and ask for a job, 99% of the time they will never get back to you. Right? And so you want to be very mindful about getting people to know you first, like you, and then trust you enough for them to say, yeah, you know what, I would love it if you send me your resume. But do not do that on the first ask. Some things you can do. I talked about ask for 10 minutes. I'm doing some informational interviews. I'm researching the top 10 companies in the area in marketing. Your company came up as top 10. You want to know which source, not just make them up. Would you be interested in taking 10 minutes to help me understand and learn more about your culture? What makes your marketing unique? I'm just curious because I'm researching where I want to go next. You can always reach out to someone once you're connected and say, Brad, I'm really interested in getting into journalism. I saw you do a lot of networking on your profile. Do you know of a few events that you found really beneficial? That's an easy ask, and if you're not sure where to go network, that could be a great question to ask in a connection request. Again, maybe not the first one, depends. But if you're out networking, I would absolutely ask that question. Because your goal, like you said, get out of the house, meet more people, follow up with those people. All right. These are some examples of what I call the 4 eyes that are not about me. When I am posting on LinkedIn, which I showed you earlier with my terrible typing, although actually I'm much better typer than that. Middle school typing class was awesome and so worth it.
It's the keyword.
Is the keyword. That's right. You can write about events you're going to. You can write about nonprofits you're passionate about. Just try to think about things that are on brand for you so that it's intentional. So you can provide all kinds of information. This is me giving a shout out to a company for a website they did for me. If you think about speakers you've heard, companies who put on conferences or events, give shout outs. Great keynote from so-and-so. So glad that this company sponsored it. Really meaningful event. Highly recommend you come to the next year's event. Here's a link to register for that. Make it valuable for the people who are going to see the content you're sharing. This is a tip that a friend of mine, Mark Silverman, who's an executive coach, he said, stop saying I'm sorry. And I was like, I'm sorry. No, I'm just kidding. I was like, do tell. He said, just say thank you. If you're late to a meeting, say thank you so much for your patience. Let's get started. If you say I'm sorry, that starts to be the brand. So instead of saying I'm sorry, say thank you. So I wrote this on LinkedIn. 3,700 people saw it. It had a ton of 9 comments, some ridiculous number of likes. So it clearly resonated. So even if all you put out on LinkedIn once in a while is an inspirational, thought-provoking insight, could be something you learn here at 40 plus, could be something you believe in just as good career advice. Share it as you're adding value to other people. That could be a great way to build your brand as well. All right, I know there's a lot of color here. I don't want you to read the text. This is the month of August. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. There are only 5 actions I'm asking you to take. and just fill one a day. I think those are 5 colors. I kept having to recount because it was like distracting. I was distracting myself with all the colors. On Monday, maybe every Monday, you just write a little bitty blurb or a post and share an article. You could do that on other days from specific companies that you want to know about you. Maybe every Tuesday you only do 2 things. The first Tuesday of the month, you follow up with somebody on LinkedIn, like me, who could connect with me. Maybe you follow a company leader. You can actually go to someone's page and follow them without connecting. Maybe once a week you write a recommendation, or twice a month is what I have here. My only point for this colorful slide is to have a plan and at least do one thing, whether it's a month or a week or a day, that's up to you. I'm happy to share this with you. Go do some research. Today is Thursday. I don't have to do anything on LinkedIn, thank goodness, I just have to research. Perfect, go find those companies that you're interested in. Go find some people you want to connect with. But do something. This could be in person and it could be online. That's up to you. I just made this for LinkedIn. But you should be doing something every week that's in person or online to help grow your visibility. Because if people don't know about you, they can't help you. And people are really helpful. If you wanted to reach out to someone and ask for feedback on a resume, most people will say absolutely. If you ask them to help you find a job, that's a dicier proposition. Some people are not in a place where they can help you, some people are. So just be careful if you're asking that. I liked this slide better than this one, but this was a slightly different view. Take those areas of expertise, those 3 circles, and share evidence based on that. Share one piece of evidence about travel. Maybe share an article about how travel is so expensive and the way people can manage that. That's up to you. Like I said, I like structure. Questions before we wrap up? What have I not answered that you want me to go back and answer? And I'm happy to pull up someone's profile and judge it in real time in the next 4 minutes before we have to wrap up with someone else looking up.
I'm willing.
You want me to pick up?
Whoever, yeah.
Let me go through Fred's because I'm a pretty quick passage, and then Ronnie will do yours as well. And I have my business cards up here, so I'm more than happy to share them with you. So I did get a request, and you did add a banner. So one of the things that people don't always realize is that just because you have a picture on your profile, depending on your settings, it may not show up to people you're not connected with. So I would have someone that's not connected with you, somebody in the room, maybe look at your profile and make sure your picture and your privacy settings are correct so that everything is showing up. What do you guys think? Typing is kind of crooked. Does that mean you're creative or just crooked? I like the idea of the typeset. I might tweak it so that it's straight.
Yeah.
What other feedback?
Maybe center your picture in the middle,
Yep.
so it's more obvious picture of you.
Depending if it's a hiring manager who's under the age of 30, they may not know what a typewriter is.
I didn't hear the last part of what you said.
Depending on who the hiring manager is, they might be under 30, they may not know what a typewriter is.
Oh.
So maybe share the whole thing.
I bet they don't know how to get to number 1.
I bet they don't. Yes, in the back.
Oh, I was going to say, if I'm reading correctly, financial journalist and author.
Yep.
I don't know if it's.
Does it grab your attention?
Well, the author part does, but then I have nothing on finance on the background. So I don't know if there's a way to extrapolate the dollar signs on the typeset and make them larger.
So was this a useful piece of information? Or do you want to know more?
Like if I just look
I want to know more. Financial journalist, which publications? Which industry? Right? Are you an expert? Are there certain things in finance you've talked about? Because I heard finance is complicated.
Fair question.
Do you have a specialty? Right? So I would, some people have different preferences. I tend to like capitalizing my words except for the ands and the a's and stuff. It's up to you. But yeah, I would change that. So this doesn't give me a lot about who you are, but it's a start. So maybe think about what were some of the favorite things you've ever written. Put those publications in your profile. You could list them out here, right? What would you love to write about?
In my defense, I only learned half an hour ago that you can add sections.
I know you were going real time. It's all good. That's all good. Please make sure your roles are associated with a company page. Otherwise, the logo will not show up. Sometimes companies don't have a company page in your SOL unless you can ask them to add one. Again, I would give me some more information. Did you work with a team? How many things did you publish? How many articles did you write? Were any of them ever quoted? Put links to the articles on here, because you just told me earlier that you do online stuff. So what are some of the articles, and put links to them? Yep, you can put the links in your experience section. I tend to really, you want to make sure the last 2 roles you were in are really awesome, like really very well written. Maybe 3 roles, depending on how long you were in them. The further back you go, I'm going to guess that it's probably less relevant to what you want to do next. That's not always the case. But you want to make sure those really are well written. So tell me more about this. Supreme Court, that sounds cool. CFPB. Put links to those articles. Same thing here. I love that you have authored here. That's awesome. You could also put it, did you put it in publications? So you can add more publications here. I would follow more companies. Tell me what's really cool. What I don't know, and I would maybe ask your company best, if you can take some of those articles and write them as a blog. Even if it's just the first paragraph, and send them to your publication. Or if you like writing, write new content.
Oh,
for LinkedIn.
For LinkedIn.
On LinkedIn. Yeah. Can I go one more minute and look at Ron's profile? Is that all right?
Oh, yes.
Ronnie, what's your last name?
English.
So earlier, Jan, that's right. So I don't know you because they can't see you.
That's interesting.
So this is a privacy setting. I'll show you guys how to change that. This is a great example. First impression. Would you connect with her? Probably not. Is she real? I don't know. I can't see her. Right? So make sure you have got your privacy settings checked. I usually don't like all caps, so I'd probably change that. And then you could put a banner here that's relevant to the work you're trying to do. Unless your current company needs this to be here, maybe just focus on property, travel, like blend what you're doing now with what's coming next or something, I don't know.
Can you reload me? Because I've actually been working on all of that today. Should change. That's interesting. Do you know how long it takes?
Should be real time. There's no saving. I refresh. It's real time once you make changes.
Got it.
So
yeah, I just did that about, so that's great.
So that's there. So that's good.
Interesting. The title didn't change though. Oh.
You might not have saved your title.
Wow.
So when you are in there changing things, one thing I just want to make sure I disclose. In your current role, or any current role, please make sure this button is turned off.
Oh.
It's the share with network button. If it is blue, when you make an edit, it will tell the whole world you've changed your profile. So if you're in here making changes before we got to this part, please make it gray.
Is it basically choose who can see your activity? Do you want your network to be notified of your work anniversary? Oh,
That's different.
It's showing
What you're talking about, so when you log in and you go to your profile page,
yeah.
this link right here, edit public profile, if you You click on that, that's where you can change your URL. This is where you can change your visibility. So to me, everything is public to everyone. Your setting is probably your network only, or only first degree connections. Some of you may want that, that's up to you. It just means that when people come to your profile, they will see a picture. And people are 14 times less likely to connect if you don't have a picture. And these are all the things you can show or not. You can decide. I've got all of mine in public, so you can decide that, but that's just something to think about. So yeah, definitely update settings. I think I have OCD, it's probably likely. What I would say is if you're gonna write content for LinkedIn, write it in Word and do bullets in Word, just the circles, the other bullets don't look right. And copy paste it. That's just my own OCD, I'm a data point one. It's up to you. But I generally don't like these little things. I just don't think they look as good. And so I would do 1 or 2 sentences about this company, this organization, whatever company it is. 2 sentences about your role, and then the results or the impacts we've made. Okay. Right. For all of these, I know depending on which sector you're in, there should be an icon for this. I'm not sure about for K&L Associates. But yeah, wherever you can, you want to have a look. Education, certification, skills. You want to go in and change your setting that people can endorse you. Right now, it might be because we're not connected. So if you send me a connection request. And then I would think about, right now when I come to your profile, I know you haven't shared anything on LinkedIn yet, but I would love to see people doing something. All right. I hope this has been helpful. We've covered a ton.
Yeah.
Yeah, are you like, I'm tired? I'm tired. Who knew LinkedIn was so much fun? I did. It is a lot. I would say, you've got your worksheet in front of you with a checklist of all the things we've covered. If you want me to look at your profile, give you feedback, even look at your resume, I just need you to email it to me. If you want my slides, I need you to email me. I'm not going to add you to my list or anything, but I need a business card to be able to follow up with you because I am also not telepathic. Thank you all very much for your time. It's been fabulous.